Meet Rashad Richey, a despicable Meet Rashad Richey, a despicable race hustler of the worst order. Today, he's going to double down on his previous video of the Roger Fortson shooting and place an innocent bystander and possibly his employer in jeopardy. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With cold, blunt analysis cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's time for the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
Now, this concerns a previous video that he cut where he claimed that the officer involved in this shooting covered the peephole with his hand. Now, anybody with half a brain probably realized that the officer stood to the side of the door like officers typically do when they knock during domestic violence calls. But not Rashad. No.
Situation where an airman, a senior airman, was shot by a deputy in Florida. When the first video came out and the sheriff said, oh, he did not cover the peephole and he was not at the wrong address. I said, something doesn't sound right about that, because why would a trained airman who's FaceTiming a young lady say, I can't see who's knocking on my door like this? She says, the way he said it, it was as if the deputy was covering the peephole. Well, he wasn't covering the peephole. He was standing away, hiding from it.
Wow. Oh, Rashad, you really nailed it this time. Go back to his earlier video. Rashad Richey, directly implied that the officer was covering the peephole with his hand. He even said, why would a trained serviceman not know how to look through his peephole?
You see the game the sheriff was playing when he did that?
Well, wait, what game? There was no game here. No, I don't see the game. What the hell is he talking about?
All right, let me remind you of what happened. Here it is.
Are they fighting or something?
Saying that it happens frequently?
Notice it says here, she was saying that it happens frequently. The woman approaching is not the complainer. She got the phone call and she's telling the officer what she heard.
Frequently?
Okay.
But this time it sounded like it was getting out of hand.
Sheriff's office, open the door! Sheriff's office, open the door! Step back. Drop the gun! Drop the gun!
It's over there.
Drop the gun!
I don't have it.
312, shots fired. Suspect down. Do not move!
Suspect of what?
Well, that's what you call them. The police officer thought he saw a deadly threat.
Put it up full mass. It was no suspect. There was no time for him to drop the weapon that was a non-threat. It was on his side. I need to highlight a couple of things here.
And by the way, we agree on that. I'm not terribly comfortable with this shooting either. I think the shooting will be ruled justified, but I'm not good with it. But that's not the point here.
The deputy is trained to only point his gun when there is an active threat that may need or may warrant a gun. The airman, the senior airman, is trained to only point his gun when there is an active threat where it may warrant a gun. Both of these gentlemen.
I'm not sure that that's the airman's actual training, but okay.
Both of these gentlemen received the same mandate in their training. One of them adhered to their mandate. That's the one who's dead. He has the right to bear arms. I thought in Florida, officers really like the fact that people have the right to bear arms.
Right, but the officer didn't shoot Fortson because he saw a violation of gun laws. I mean, that was never the issue here. Whether or not Roger Fortson had a legal right to carry the gun is completely irrelevant. Has no bearing on anything. The cop thought he saw an active threat. He took action to negate the threat. Whether his fear was reasonable is the question here, not gun laws. This is not a Second Amendment issue. And yeah, it is possible for two people to receive the same training and react completely differently. It happens.
But when you're bearing arms and you happen to be a young black male, you are now automatically interpreted as a criminal through the perspective of that officer.
There's no evidence that race played any role in this whatsoever. And in fact, this happened so quickly, it's highly unlikely that it did. The officer saw a gun, and he reacted to that gun. Was it reasonable? Well, that will be up to the GBI to determine. But this isn't about race. Except, as far as you're concerned, that's the only thing that matters.
His gun was no threat. It was not pointed, and he has the constitutional right to bear it. My law school professor would say when the Constitution says you can do something, that means it's extra legal for you to do.
He got that from a law professor. I don't know how many law professors he's ever had, but you can probably count them on one hand. And before any of you Richeyites come in here and talk about, oh, he's got a Juris Doctorate. No, he doesn't. If he wants to claim that he has a Juris Doctorate, I want to see the transcripts.
Florida authorities have now released the body cam footage showing the tragic moment when a white sheriff's deputy fatally shot a black U.S. senior airman during a disturbance call at Fort Walton Beach apartment complex, which Attorney Ben Crump continues to claim. He continues to say this was simply a matter of them being at the wrong unit. Atlanta Black Star obtained official police video.
Oh no, the Atlanta Black Star. Whatever faith you had in the information is now gone.
Of the May 3rd shooting that killed 23-year-old Air Force senior airman Mr. Roger Fortson. After the deputy was met in the parking lot by a witness who apparently called police and led the officer to apartment 1401, which is shown as the number outside of Fortson's unit. Can somebody get me the name of this witness?
No, you don't need the name of the witness. The police blurred her out for a reason, Rashad. The reason why there is this delay in releasing body cam footage to the public is because of people like you, Rashad. They have to take time to blur out the identities and license plates and stuff so that people like you can't find out who they are. You want to know her name so you can find out where she lives and her phone number and anything else, and then you're going to broadcast this on your channel. If I'm the Young Turks, I'm thinking this man is a walking liability. Sooner or later, Rashad, you're going to get somebody hurt doing this crap. You've done it before. The other thing I should point out is it's clear that she was telling the officer what somebody else told her on the phone. And that's not going to stop you from misinforming all of your viewers into thinking that she's responsible for Fortson's death. You have a complete inability to do any kind of research whatsoever. You have no critical thinking skills whatsoever. You are an absolute disgrace to journalism. You talk all this time about the truth and all that. You have no interest in the truth. And I will tell you this, if that woman did get hurt by one of your fans, you wouldn't give a damn. And the reason why you wouldn't care is because she's white. You are one of the most racist people on the internet.
Inside, Fortson was chatting with his girlfriend on FaceTime. Routine, they having a conversation. Before he was shot, almost as soon as he opened his front door. Moments before the gunfire, the Okaloosa County Sheriff deputy was told by a woman in the parking lot that, quote, it sounded like something was getting out of hand inside of 1401.
Well, damn it. You just played the video where she said things right before that made it clear that she was not the one filing the complaint. She was relaying it from somebody else. You heard it. You edited it out. You want to go after her. And I have a feeling the reason why is very simple. Because she's on camera, although blurred out, you think you have a reasonable chance of finding out who that woman was. So you can go ahead and go after her and get everybody all worked up in a race-fueled frenzy.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes. A random individual saying, "Oh, it's getting out of hand there." Knock on the door. You hide so that he can't see that it's law enforcement.
So that the person on the other side can't shoot you through the door. Police do this for a reason. If you had done any research, you'd know that. But you can't do research. Your one-dimensional thinking only allows one outcome, and that is, it must be police brutality. The police stood to the side only for one reason, because they're evil monsters. There can't be any other reason according to you. I don't necessarily agree with the policy in every instance, but the whole idea that it escaped you is amazing. How could you not know that?
There's no reason for you to hide. This is not a high-risk warrant. What are you hiding for?
Yeah, it's not a high-risk warrant. It's a domestic violence call. Which call they fear the most? But again, you don't know anything about policing. I mean, I'm not a police officer, but I know that. I know that if you talk to a police officer, the one that they worry about the most is the domestic violence calls.
What are you hiding for? There's more. She then told the officer that 2 weeks earlier, she or a neighbor was passing by the same unit when she heard someone yelling, "Shut the up." Wait a minute.
She or a neighbor? Which one?
That's illegal?
No, that's not illegal, Mr. Brainiac lawyer wannabe. You can call the cops if there's excessive noise going on next door. It's not a crime, but the police can go and investigate. Do you not know this?
That means I should have been arrested 1 hour before I got on this show because I had to tell somebody that personally.
What kind of person are you? I haven't told anybody that I can't remember. I don't talk like that. Do you talk to other people like that? Really? I thought that you were one of these religious types. But you sound pretty arrogant. And by the way, he didn't say that to anybody this morning. He made it up, because if there's one thing that Rashad Richey can do, it's lie like a dog.
Personal story. Put it back up. So that's not illegal. That's an argument. Sometimes men have arguments. Sometimes relationships get into arguments. None of this is against the law.
Right, but when you have an argument going on and it's disturbing, you can call the police and they can knock on the door and investigate. They can do that. This is the guy who claims a Juris Doctorate.
None of this makes it high risk.
Again, domestic violence calls, man. There is a procedure for that. You don't stand in front of the door. That's just the way it is. The officer was going by what he was trained to do.
Then the person says, there was the sound of someone being slapped. What? The story
I admit that sounds a little bit freaky, but okay.
Just gets more seemingly embellished. However, she admitted to the officer that she wasn't exactly sure where the shouting was coming from at the time. You see, that's the part. She wasn't exactly sure where any of this was actually happening. It was just noise.
The caller that called in told her it was in apartment 1401. It's on the video.
People. Possible physical contact. There's more. On the day in question, however, she said she had no doubts that the disturbance was coming from inside of Fortson's apartment. At that point, she tells the deputy that the unit is located on the 4th floor, down the hall from the elevator. Once upstairs, the deputy is shown approaching Fortson's door, listening quietly for a few seconds before banging on the door. At this time, he did not announce himself as a cop, but instead positioned himself to the side of the door where he could not be seen through the peephole. So what do we have here? I want you to get the situation, the nuance of this. He doesn't announce that he's the police. He knocks like he's SWAT, all right? He knocks like he's angry. He knocks on the door.
He knocks loudly, okay? Yeah, I mean, that's what cops do.
Not announce he's the police. He hides so that the young airman cannot see who has just knocked at his door. The airman is known for being in the military. He doesn't know who's doing this. He doesn't know if this is a setup, an attack, or anything. So he tells the young lady on FaceTime, I can't see who's at the door. I'm going to get my gun. He gets his gun, he puts it on his side. He doesn't walk toward the door with the gun drawn because he's trained not to do that. So he puts it on his side. There's more. She tells the deputy that the unit is located on the 4th floor down the hall from elevator. Once upstairs, deputy shown approaching, listening quietly. Seconds later, Fortson can be heard on the footage, possibly mentioning the police, but not yelling. But no yelling could be heard from the airman who did not open the door. There is no disturbance active. Officer cannot independently assert this. At this
Yeah, but he could still knock on the door. I mean, he's got a complaint. He goes and he listens. He doesn't hear anything. Okay, fine. He can walk away at that point, but he can also knock on the door and ask what's going on.
point, the deputy knocks again, and for the first time, he decides to announce himself as a sheriff's deputy.
Okay, so he did announce himself as a sheriff's deputy.
But there was still no response from inside. And this is probably when he went back to retrieve the weapon so that he could protect himself in case. The deputy then knocked a third time while stating more forcefully. Sheriff's office opened the door. The deputy continued to stand out of the view of the peephole until Fortson slowly opened the door while simply holding the gun in his right hand with it pointed to the floor as he is trained to do.
And notice it says, while simply holding the gun in his right hand, this is evidence of a biased article. And of course, this is from the Atlanta Black Star. This is how they're going to skew everything they write. And this is where he gets a lot of his information.
Suddenly, the deputy can be heard saying, "Step back," before quickly drawing his weapon and firing 6 shots rapidly into Fortson's chest.
I only counted 5.
As part of the investigation, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement said it would focus on whether the reported disturbance that led to the shooting actually occurred at Fortson's residence. FDLE officials said the probe will seek to determine whether the use of force was justified and scrutinize the 911 call and the person's reason for making the emergency call in the first place. The footage shows Fortson never raised his weapon toward the officer. Instead, Fortson held up his hand, presumably to protect himself as the officer aimed his gun. The 6 slugs dropped Fortson to the floor while the officer continued to yell at him, saying, "Drop the gun." Video shows the dying man telling the officer the location of his gun, saying, "It's over there. I don't have it."
That's right. That's what he said. He told the officer, "It's over there. I don't have it." The vocal inflections that this dude does to try to get his message across are amazing.
Suspect down, the deputy then told dispatch, "There is no suspect, deputy. You have not established there's a suspect, deputy."
That's not how it works, Richie.
He could have been a victim, deputy. Later saying he needed an ambulance later. As other deputies arrived, the officer at the scene told them, "We're good, we're good."
Really? With those vocal inflections? He said it that way? Or are you making this shit up?
"You're good." Put him up, Ben Crump.
Oh, God. Here we go.
My dear brother and friend, prominent civil rights attorney Ben Crump issued a statement to Law and Crime saying, quote, he had a gun as soon as he opened the door, the deputy said, setting the narrative that emerged initially from the sheriff's office. In the video, law enforcement could be heard demanding anyone else in the department to come up with their hands up, but no one responded. At least one deputy could be heard saying clear, calling Fortson's killing an execution. That also violated the civil rights, saying there's no question that
this was not an execution. Come on. And by the way, it was Benjamin Crump that said that the officers burst into the apartment. Yeah, that didn't happen either. The man on the screen is a pathological liar. He lies all the time.
that the officer acted with impulse and a lack of proper training when he shot and killed Roger within seconds of opening the door. Fortson had been stationed at the Special Operations Wing at Hulbert Field when he lived off base at the apartment complex where 6 bullets from a county sheriff's deputy in Florida ended his life. Days after the shooting, Crump held a news conference with the family at the Hilton Garden Inn in Fort Walton Beach to address the shooting while criticizing police officials for portraying the shooting as an act of self-defense. Quote, "We have to clear this narrative," Crump said, while also accusing the sheriff's department of not being fully transparent about what happened previously.
We have to clear this narrative. You mean you don't want to investigate first? You want to just go ahead and claim it can't possibly be self-defense? You don't want to look at the laws? You don't want to go back over the video? Talk to witnesses, the officer? And the answer is, of course they don't.
Previously, Crump said the sheriff's office described Fortson as an armed man.
Yeah, because he was armed and he was a man.
But never mentioned that Fortson had his gun pointed down at the floor when he was shot. Okay, where's the NRA?
Why would they be here? It's not a Second Amendment issue. The NRA has no business getting involved in this.
This is an appropriately armed individual. He's inside of his home, has the right to protect himself. He did not unlawfully point the gun at a law enforcement official. He's dead. Was the NRA or the pro-veteran groups?
If Fortson had been carrying a crowbar and the officer thought that Fortson was going to hit him with it, and so the officer opened fire and shot him dead, it would be the same issue. The fact that it was a gun versus any other kind of weapon is irrelevant. This is not a Second Amendment issue. Come on, Rashad, I thought that you knew law.
Or the pro-veteran groups who stand up for their own. Where are you?
Whether or not Fortson was in the military has no bearing on any of this. Are you trying to tell us that if Fortson had been a civilian, that this shooting would have been okay? Really? That's your claim?
Saying nothing, because this young black male does not fit your conclusive narrative about how this should work. But I guarantee you, if it was the other way around, this narrative would be proclaimed. So here we are.
This is the guy telling us that we're just trying to fit a narrative. Imagine that. This man. And by the way, where in the hell did you get that Irish grin from?
You have a dead airman. The evidence is very clear. This officer should have been arrested at least for criminal negligence, involuntary manslaughter, at the very least, but nothing.
Yeah, it's a police officer. If you're going to arrest a police officer, you're going to have to get the district attorney involved first. You just don't go around arresting cops. So yeah, they're going to look at the videos. They're going to conduct interviews. They're going to confer with the district attorney about what the law says before they make an arrest. There is no reason to make an arrest immediately.
All right. Tehran, this story boils my blood. What are your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, of course, I want to send my condolences to the family of Airman Roger Fortson, because this is a sad tale, especially when your child, a 23-year-old, is enlisted in the armed forces, and thank you for your service, isn't killed overseas, isn't killed in the line of duty, but is killed at home by those who are supposed to protect and serve the community. This is especially sad. Now, my understanding of this is that none of those NRA, Green Party group, Second Amendment group type people.
Green Party? What the hell is he talking about?
Where the black flags showed up to protest this. Second Amendment rights in the state of Florida. Nobody came to the rescue of this young man's honor. And my understanding is that we're within the rights in Florida to have that gun, especially inside your property, inside your own home. The police officer clearly gave a false narrative of how the proceedings went. And even during that false narrative, it was an incorrect way of handling the situation.
Okay, first of all, I don't think anything that the police officer stated was incorrect. Where is he getting this from? What was it that the police officer said that was shown to be a lie? I'm not aware of it. And second of all, the only thing that I really criticized the police officer was for the initial knock, he didn't announce himself. He walked down the hallway, then he went back, knocked, and announced himself. But I do criticize him on that first one. And of course, we can argue about whether he should have shot Fortson or not. In my opinion, he shouldn't have. It was an unjustified shooting. However, I do believe that the state will come in and rule it justified strictly on the technicality of the issue.
Now, thankfully, we have body camera, which always reminds me, how was the world like before body camera? We have body cameras that show that this man was well within his rights, well within not only just state rights, but constitutional, federally executed rights, and was still shot down in his home.
That can happen. You can actually be well within your rights and still have something tragic happen to you. If somebody on the other side misperceives something, it happens.
I don't want to blame the person outside, the supposed witness who heard all the things, because we should have enactment of see something, say something. That's not the case. And being a police officer is a very dangerous job. It is stressful. It is extremely, extremely cautious worthy. We don't need scary police. You're not a good officer. What you did was a crime. You killed a man in cold blood. You did not follow your own training, which is set out for your safety and for the safety of others. You did not follow the law, so you should go to jail, directly to jail. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200.
You can cut the cliches here. In my previous video, I made an argument that even if the shooting was unjustified, the police officer shouldn't go to jail. And if you're wondering how I could make such a claim, go watch my previous video, which I will link in the description below. But what have we learned here? Number one, blaming that woman is typically what Rashad Richey will try to do because he wants to go on the attack. He wants somebody to pay. He doesn't care if she's guilty or not. He's not seeking transparency. He's looking for vigilantism. And that kind of crap needs to come to an end. The Young Turks needs to have a talk with Rashad Richey and tell him that if the police have redacted somebody's name by blurring them out or whatever, that means that they are trying to protect that person's identity and you are not to go after it. Rashad Richey is irresponsible. He is exactly the worst about social media journalism. Like my video, subscribe to my channel.